Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. I appreciate everybody who waited. Thank you. And to my super chat, ladies and first and foremost, before the super chat, Eric H526, Luke St. Martin, thank you. Eric, I see you're on. Thank you so very much. Luke, I'm not sure if you're on, but whenever you do get on, thank you. Two best moderators in all of YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great show this evening. I'm going to probably start doing live streams twice a day in April. Maybe starting April 1st, May. Maybe starting May 1st, I'll do 2 live streams a day, one in the afternoon Pacific time and one in the late evening Pacific time. So I might start doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. To my super chat, thank you so very much. Alice, hello. Hello, everybody. We have a lot to talk about. Number one, you notice that Trump's taxes aren't in the news. They're not in the news because they didn't lead to anything. None of the allegations against Trump have ever led to anything. There's never been a story that you can look at, and there's never been a story or a controversy around Trump that led to him getting kicked out of office, indicted. There was never a like James Comey saying, well, he didn't mean to do this, we couldn't find intent, that type of thing. So you look, ladies and gentlemen, and it's like they're focusing now on what should be legislation for police, if they say, well, police reform or legislation to address brutality. They should be focusing on laws. They're not focusing on laws, they're focusing on emotion. They're vilifying and trying to demonize all law enforcement officials in the same manner they tried to demonize and vilify Trump or Trump supporters. And what happens is the following. They have to continually keep up a racket. The racket is emotion. All purely emotion-based. There's no nuance or context when Democrats accuse either law enforcement or Republicans or Trump. There's no nuance or context. And then you have the Republican Party not helping out at all. So you have 74 million Americans who voted for President Trump. They're pretty much all alone. They don't have the Republican Party firmly behind them. Now you have Josh Hawley and you have Mike Braun. That was interesting. That actually was interesting. So I did a segment on that earlier today. And that was something on a topic that I won't get too in depth within this live stream, but check out the upload earlier today. That's very important, but that's fostered by Trump. So Trump pushed that. You ordinarily wouldn't have, and there's like zero support or very little support within the Republican Party to actually push for that. I shouldn't say that. There's support within the Republican Party, but Republicans don't speak with one voice. So they get drowned out by media, Democrats, Hollywood, social media algorithms, intelligence operatives. But you do have, there are some good things on the horizon. His taxes led to nothing because he wasn't part of some kind of criminal conspiracy. That's the issue. He wasn't part of a criminal conspiracy. He didn't give money to intelligence officials to infiltrate the DNC to inform the country that Bernie was cheated. He didn't do any of those things. And now nobody's talking about his taxes now, just like nobody's talking about Trump and Russia, just like nobody's talking about Trump pressuring Zelensky. None of these things happened. None of these things were linked to any criminal behavior because they made them up. They fabricated everything. Now they're allowing, whether you want to call them rebellions or insurrections, or whatever you want to call them, they're allowing that to take place on a smaller scale here and there. In Oklahoma, as an example, is an example there, and looking the other way. So Democrats, media, they focus only on what is politically expedient. So January 6th was a tragedy, yes, of course. But there was a similar type of event in Oklahoma. That if you had a conservative organization interrupting the state legislature of a blue state with Democrats trying to pass a climate change bill, or let's just say a left-leaning legislation, oh my God, you wouldn't hear the end of it. So you have a whole lot of duplicity. But ladies and gentlemen, February 25th is when Trump's taxes were obtained by federal prosecutors. They were obtained by federal prosecutors on February 25th, okay? You now have a situation where not only do they have his tax returns, not only could they have leaked the tax returns to every major Democrat, including Pelosi, or at least given them a heads up as to what they found, but there's been nothing on that front. There's been no discussion, nothing. And there's a reason for that, because it hasn't led to anything. They didn't find anything. And what you have today with Democrats and media and law enforcement is tragic. We have a country of 320 million Americans. You are going to look at a country of 320 million Americans, and you have one political side trying to foment the belief that all law enforcement is after a specific group of people. That's not the case. Are there tragedies that take place? Yes. Is police brutality an issue that needs to be addressed? Yes. Can you do so with legislation on a federal level? Yeah. Why don't they? That's the question. That's the question that I'd love to ask. They don't address legislation on a federal level for the following reason, okay? They know very well that, for example, the Chauvin guilty verdict, they know that when they get what they want or when they pass legislation, the emotions subside. And they can't have that. They can't have emotions subside. Everything has to be extreme, sensationalized. They don't have Trump to get them going. They don't have Medicare for all, because that's never going to happen. AOC and others were lying. They were lying since day one. Bernie Sanders was basically lying since day one. I don't know. I don't think it's feasible, and I've stated that for a long time. But it's a noble idea. But that's not going to happen. Because what Democrats do is they tell left-leaning voters, look, we will do this. You better vote for us. We're the only chance you have. We're the only chance you have to... Jeremiah, hello. Jeremiah Carrillo, hello. Thank you. What Democrats tell voters is the following. We're the only chance you have. You'll have no chance at Medicare for all if you don't vote for us. So definitely vote for us. And if you vote for us, then, Republicans will serve as an obstacle to Republicans, and we're the lesser of two evils. And if you don't vote for us, oh my God, Trump could pass prison reform legislation. He can allocate more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. He could be the first president to step foot in North Korea. He could he could preside over the Abraham Accords, the beginning of peace between Israel, UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco. He could do all of these things. Oh my God. He could preside over record low unemployment throughout most of his tenure, at least around half of his tenure. Now we're talking about inflation. Now we're talking about issues like that we haven't been talking about for a long, long time. We haven't been talking about inflation in this country for a long, long time. And Biden wants to raise taxes. There's a tremendous crisis right now that nobody's talking about taking place at the southern geographic region of our country. And I am liberal on certain elements of that topic. I want dreamers to become citizens. But the same facilities and cages and all of the moral indignation, everything that Democrats claim to be against is happening now. It's still happening. So it's interesting how when you have a Democrat in the Oval Office, there's no media hysteria. They say, well, Biden's his approval rating is at 60%. Yeah, he has universally favorable media coverage. There's no hysteria. He's not being accused of working alongside Russia. He hasn't been set up by intelligence operatives. I mean, Trump did not have a moment's rest. There was not a moment's rest with Trump. And, I mean, there wasn't a moment's rest. So it's like, yeah, you have President Biden in the Oval Office, but it's almost the presidency, of the establishment. The establishment is calmed down. There's no hysteria. There's no angst. There's no paranoia. The headlines pertaining to Biden are calm, subdued, rational, give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable when you take, even if you don't like Trump, even if you didn't like Trump, and there are certain things he shouldn't have said, that's fine. I agree with that. But he did good things, and he was never given credit for those good things because of his his Twitter profile. Twitter was one of the reasons why you look at LeBron James. He's not suspended, but if anyone else said the same thing, I mean, there's a double standard, and it's not even the Democratic Party's fault or Hollywood. It's the Republican Party's fault. The Republicans had an identity crisis. The Republicans never accepted Trump, and you can blame, the Republican Party, you could blame the Republican Party for, I mean, there are things that President Trump could have done to prevent his loss. A lot of things. But the Republican Party in general, you could blame Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney. I mean, there's no equivalent in the Democratic side. There's just no equivalent. And they vote alongside Trump, according to 538's vote tracker, 80% of the time. 80% of the time. So you can't vote alongside Trump 80% of the time and then claim to oppose him and claim this moral superiority. Oh, I oppose Trump. You can't claim to oppose Trump and then vote alongside President Trump 80% of the time. That's not how things should work. But again, it's like this racket. Trump's taxes, he was never accused of being in trouble with the IRS. He that was never part of he was never accused of that. He was never accused of working alongside Russian intelligence operatives. He was never accused of that. He was never accused of being this horrible monster in terms of prejudice. And they took, like, one thing, I will say this. One thing that President Trump could have done, like, I understand he didn't want to play ball and he was adversarial when they were at, like, he only knows how to punch back hard. But sometimes, like Sun Tzu said, the best battle is one that you don't fight but still win. I don't know if he said that exactly, but the best battle is one that you just don't fight and still win. If you don't have to fight, and if you can circumvent fighting and still win a confrontation, that doesn't necessarily mean like Trump had to run away from confrontation, but he could have simply, like, when they kept saying, do you condemn bad things? He could have said, yes, I condemn bad things, yes. Instead of kind of saying, of course, well, why would you even ask me? And then say, yes, I condemn the bad things. I condemn bad things. How many times do you want me to condemn bad things? Biden condemns bad things. Yeah, well, he did bad things. Tomorrow, this weekend, hopefully, Biden recognizes the Armenian genocide. That would be amazing. That would be a earth-shattering moment in history, a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I would tip my hat to Biden, and I would congratulate Biden for doing that and thank him for doing that. I think that would be fantastic. I think that Trump laid the groundwork by removing Americans from that region of the world, lessening Turkey's influence on our foreign policy. But I think that would be a really beautiful thing. I hope he does that tomorrow. I do think, though, that President Trump did have a lot to do with it. I wish he could have done that, recognized it during Trump's administration. Deplorable Brian! Deplorable Brian, Inside Link. Say your hope he wrote off Stormy Daniels' hush money payments on his taxes. Who was it, Deplorable Brian? Who was it that wrote a check to, I don't know what you would say, a lady who, I guess, algorithmically friendly, a lady working in a certain industry. He wrote a check. Who was it? Who was it that wrote the check? Deplorable Brian. Who writes a check? Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer, Deplorable Brian. I mean, like, that's the thing. If you're going to do something shady, not that I have ever done anything shady, I'm just saying, why would you go the Jerry Springer route? So a personal check. How he paid 2 personal checks in December 1973 and 1974. That's worse than going to the supermarket and paying with a check. Who does that nowadays? But oh my God. And he was the mayor of Cincinnati, right? The Jerry Springer Show is going off. The show made the former Cincinnati mayor famous across the country. Wow. That's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Elliot Spitzer, that's right. Deplorable Brian, thank you. Could be, and you know what? Like, it's interesting too, because he wrote off, there's probably, if you're a billionaire, Deplorable Brian. Carl, hello. Tammy, hello. Aria, hello everybody. David, hello. If you are a billionaire, there are probably so many loopholes. So many if you're a billionaire real estate investor, there are probably so many loopholes that you can I mean, there are probably endless loopholes that you can take advantage of as a billionaire real estate investor in New York. So the taxes are a lot higher. The losses are probably a lot greater. Or, the write-offs are there's probably so many loopholes. So it's really going to be very difficult. And the thing is, they wanted his taxes. Deplorable Brian, thank you so very much. Thank you very, very much. They wanted his taxes. Let me just read this to it. Jerry Springer in the news, how the, what scandal broke. Cincinnati Politico reported under two-state vice probe. Cincinnati mayor, under two-state vice probe. A well-known Cincinnati politician, currently the subject of a Vice investigation. This is the actual 1970s article. This is hilarious. Underway in both Ohio and Kentucky. So he apparently got around. Word is that the Kentucky investigation, the politician and his attorney have already had an interview with federal investigators. Wow. That's hilarious. The former check. He wrote 2 personal checks. It's pretty awesome. And you're Cincinnati mayor too. So anyway. What was I even saying? You look, ladies and gentlemen, and they're not talking about his taxes. So Trump taxes, you look, and it's 6 days ago, 2 weeks ago, former in-law of Trump executive gives prosecutors boxes of documents. Oh my God, boxes of documents. It's not, I keep saying, it's not the Democratic Party media intelligence operatives. It's not Hollywood. It's Republicans. There's no equivalent to Ben Sasse and Mitt Romney and Kinzinger and Cheney in the Democratic Party. There's no equivalent. There's just no equivalent. Like, the entire Democratic Party speaks with one voice, even people they cheated like Bernie Sanders. And if anyone has the courage to break away and say, hey, this is wrong, they say, oh, they're grooming us, they're grooming, the Russians are grooming this one individual. So Tulsi Gabbard had the courage to go up against the Democratic Party. And of course, Clinton said that she was working with Russia. And none of the liberal pundits found that. Like, very few liberal pundits even batted an eye, even cared. Like, very few. They just didn't care at all. Let's look at, if you type in, let's see. See, this is what I don't understand. Biden will seek tax increase on rich to fund childcare and education. That's great. Will the tax increase negatively affect the economy while there's a downturn? So, what Biden's capital gains proposal could mean for your wallet. So let's just read that really quickly. Biden's tax proposal could cost the top 1% of U.S. households about $300,000 annually. But what happens if they don't invest in businesses? If they keep their money that they would have spent on goods, services, opening up new businesses? It's interesting. You have $20 million venture capital that went into one liberal channel. $20 million in venture capital. Do you think maybe that would affect the venture capital firms? It's so interesting. We have the richest socialists who've ever existed in this country. Oh, yes. Let me tell you, I'm going to do a segment. Eric, I hope Caitlyn Jenner wins. I swear to God, if she runs as a Republican, I hope she wins. the state needs a change. My God Almighty. My God Almighty. But you watch how media and Democrats are going to treat Caitlyn Jenner. It's not diversity. They want uniformity of thought. They don't want diversity of thought. That would be a really horrible thing for Democrats. They want uniformity of thought. They want one singular viewpoint. It's about believing one thing and then claiming you want a whole bunch of different people of different backgrounds to believe that same one thing. So his proposal would result in an average tax increase of nearly $300,000 for households in the top 1% of the country, or those with incomes more than $837,000, which are a lot of the pundits on the left, by the way, who advocate socialism, or who want taxes to be increased on all the really horrible people who are making that money. By comparison, middle-income households with an income between $52,000 and $93,000 would likely see their tax bill increase by $260 per year. Why? But see again, why would you increase taxes? $260 is a lot of money for people making $52,000. It makes no sense, but then again, Democrats don't make any sense. What good is funding child care services if your policies make it even more difficult for the parents of these children to get jobs, to get jobs or keep their jobs? Like, I'm not saying you should never increase taxes, but why do so now when there's an economic downturn? Why do so now when you have states that have 11% unemployment? John Arnott, John, thank you, John, thank you very, very much, John. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. It's either Arnaud or Arnott, but thank you so very, very much, John. Greatly appreciated. Thank you. So this makes, why would you do this? So John, Deplorable Brian, thank you so very much. I don't understand. Oh, John Arnaud. Thank you. So, okay, so if that is correct, let me know. John Arnaud, thank you so very much, John. Thank you. Why would you raise taxes? The top long-term capital gains taxes paid by single taxpayers earning more than $445,000, and $501,000 for married couples filing a joint tax return. The proposals would increase taxes on average on all income groups, but the highest income household would see substantial. Well, why would you do this? Biden is expected to unveil the new. So Trump decreased taxes, which led to record low unemployment. So the Dallas Federal Reserve did a study on that. And then, of course, while it was happening, Trump's taxes aren't helping. They're not helping at all. And then, of course, there were record low unemployment. That's President Obama's doing. It was fantastic. It was, Democrats are the ones that should be thanked. And every single day they didn't give Trump a moment's rest. Every single day. Now, nobody's talking. You're going to increase taxes? How on earth are you going to rebound? How on earth are you going to have an economic rebound that puts millions of people back to work? And don't say infrastructure, because not everybody can work building a bridge or building infrastructure projects. So what are you going to do to rebound, to help the economy rebound? It comes just a few weeks after Biden released the American Jobs Plan, a $2.25 trillion tax and spending initiative that would make massive investments in the nation's roads and bridges. Not everybody can work in roads, as well as water systems, green energy, hospitals, and elder care. The plan would be funded by a slew of new tax hikes on corporations. So, including the base rate paid by U.S. Hold on one second. paid by U.S. companies to 28% from 21% and imposing a higher minimum on foreign earnings. So will this spur economic growth? Jason Childers, thank you. Jason. Jason, thank you. How does that work? I don't understand that. Reed, hello. How does that work? How do you... Let's okay, Biden tax increase. So this is a market watch. CEOs warn Biden's tax hike will hurt economy as battle lines drawn in Washington. So you never hear experts say, whenever it's something that is detrimental to the media spin and narrative, it's, well, you know, this actually is interesting. It's actually a straightforward headline. But no one's really talking about it. Business Roundtable blasts proposed infrastructure tax increase. Top U.S. business leaders are stepping up pressure on lawmakers to end a White House plan to sharply raise corporate taxes as part of President Joe Biden's massive $2.3 trillion spending proposal. The economy going into the pandemic was a healthy economy. So generally you want to pump money into banks that are failing. Like there was in 2008, the wonderful George W. Bush, he ended his presidency with a near depression because banks were going under. And so they then pumped money into the banks and bailed them out. Now you're pumping trillions into projects that aren't necessarily going to help every sector of the economy, while at the same time increasing taxes on corporations, giving them less incentive to open up new stores or new locations or expand their business or hire more people. So how are you going to help the economy? How are you going to give people, and these are the same people, by the way, like people on the left, like pundits, they're the same people who get venture capital. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. The duplicity is it's pretty unbelievable. So, the Business Roundtable, a group representing America's largest companies, said in a new survey that 98% of CEOs believe raising corporate taxes would have a moderate to very negative impact on their companies. So this is when New York and New Jersey and other states have like 8 to 7 to 6% unemployment. So you have the top 13 or 14 highest unemployment rates ranging from like 6 to 8 or 9% in the country. They were at 9% about a month ago. Hawaii had like 10% at one point unemployment. How are you going to slash unemployment? By increasing taxes and giving less incentive to corporations to hire people? How does this work? So AOC had an economics degree, or she has like an economics degree. So how does it work? How does that work? You're going to spend trillions on infrastructure, and therefore companies will hire more people? You are going to what? Hire, tens of thousands of men and women in their 50s who've lost jobs or who are in, who are experiencing tough economic conditions. How does that work? But see, you just never get any rational discussion. It's always, oh my God, if you don't agree with us, you're a supreme horrible monster who should never have been born. I don't get it. I tell you what, I don't get it. But here, the lobbying group said it would harm. So 98% of CEOs believe raising corporate taxes would have So there you go. Let me read you this. Okay, businessroundtable.org. Business Roundtable survey finds corporate tax increase would weaken U.S. business expansion, hiring, investment, R&D, and innovation. Why would you want to weaken U.S. business expansion, hiring, investment, and R&D, and innovation? Why would you want to do that if you don't like, if your biggest problem is wealth inequality? Why would you do this? Economic. William, hello. Why would you do this? Hold on, let me see. Hold on one second. Why would you do this? So, a new Business Roundtable survey of its CEO members found that increases in U.S. domestic and international tax rates would have a negative effect on business expansion, hiring, and wage growth, investments in research and development, and innovation, and U.S. competitiveness in the global economy. So this will lead to more people being homeless or less people being homeless. This will lead to a greater wealth gap or a lessening or a closing of the wealth gap. My God, even if you want to say the policies worked in the 90s, we didn't have a global issue. Like, we didn't have states that gleefully tanked their economies because of science. According to the survey result, 98% of CEOs said an increase in the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28% would have a moderately to very significant adverse effect on their company's competitiveness. 75% of CEOs said that an increased tax burden on U.S. companies would negatively affect their company's investment in R&D and innovation. 71% said it would negatively affect their ability to hire. And nearly two-thirds said it would, oh my God, nearly two-thirds said it would result in slower wage growth for U.S. workers. Wow. So let's see, who are they? So this is like Walmart, General Motors, Apple. This is the Business Roundtable, like Fortune 500 companies. Cisco, PayPal. It's just unbelievable. An overwhelming majority, 88% of respondents, agreed that maintaining global competitiveness, U.S. tax policy is important for business expansion. As we look towards recovering from the pandemic, keeping competitive tax policies in place is needed to help reinvigorate the U.S. economy and lead to more opportunities for Americans. Prior to the pandemic, the U.S. corporate tax rate drove economic growth. Trump. Thank you, Trump. Creating 6 million jobs, pushing the unemployment rate to a 50-year low, and increasing middle-class wages. From 2018 to 2019, major U.S. companies grew their research and development by 25% compared to the 2 years prior. The current U.S. corporate tax rate has also helped put U.S. businesses on a more level playing field with global competitors. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? What on earth is wrong with that? It's just unbelievable. Pam, it is. Why would you want to make the country less competitive? How on earth, this is why I say it's like the establishment is in the Oval Office. I don't know if Biden really cares or believes really in any of this stuff. I don't know if he cares or believes in any of this stuff. And you never have Prior to the pandemic, U.S. corporate tax rate drove economic growth, creating 6 million jobs, pushing the unemployment rate to a 50-year low, and increasing middle-class wages. From 2018 to 2019, major U.S. companies grew their research and development by 25% compared to the 2 years prior. The current U.S. corporate tax rate has also helped put U.S. businesses on a more level playing field with global competitors and encourage businesses to invest and grow here in the United States. The proposed tax increases on job creators would slow America's recovery and hurt workers, added Business Roundtable President and CEO Joshua Bolten. This survey tells us increasing taxes on America's largest employer would lead to a reduced ability to hire. So again, if Democrats live their lives on surveys and polls, but not from business leaders like Apple and Walmart. And then it's unbelievable. You have AOC kicking out Amazon, and then one channel that will remain nameless, their workers wanted to unionize, and they're also experiencing a racial discrimination lawsuit, which is no laughing matter and very serious. But their workers wanted to unionize. Of course, they didn't want that, but then of course they're on the side of unions. If the left had to live with their ideas, they'd become either libertarians or Trump supporters, and then Republicans. The proposed tax increase on job creators would slow America's recovery and hurt workers. This tells us increasing taxes on America's largest employers would lead to a reduced ability to hire, slower wage growth for workers, and reduced investments. By the way, all of these people in this organization are like multimillionaires. So they know something about making money. Like the CEO of Apple, actually billionaires. Slower wage growth for workers and reduced investments in research and development, all key components we need for a robust economic recovery. When U.S. companies can compete around the world, they can invest in America and help generate more jobs, pay higher wages, and support all of their stakeholders. While Business Roundtable believes infrastructure investment is a foundation for long-term economic growth, we urge policymakers to avoid tax policies that would run counter to the goal of increasing economic and job creation. CMW! Thank you, CMW. Thank you so very, very much. You love what you do. Blessings to you and yours. Thank you. Blessings to you and yours as well. CMW, thank you so very, very much. I appreciate that very much, and so kind of you. CMW, thank you. Thank you, CMW. Thank you so very, very much for always watching. And CMW, everybody here, why would you raise taxes now? CMW, thank you again. Very, very, very much. Thank you. That's the issue. Why would you raise taxes now? If you have a liberal economic viewpoint or a Democratic Party viewpoint on the economy, and you say, well, raising taxes actually is good for the economy, but why now? Why wouldn't you wait? Why wouldn't you wait a couple years? Oh, because they won't have the House, so that's why. So they want to raise taxes before the House comes in, which will actually bolster Trump Republicans to take over the House, because they're going to raise taxes. They're going to do exactly the opposite of what the Business Roundtable wants and other business groups. So CMW, thank you so very, very, very much. Greatly appreciated. CMW, thank you. If you raise taxes when the economy is in the tank, that's different from raising taxes when you don't have like a recession or some kind of horrible... if your economy is doing all right and you raise taxes for a specific, grandiose project, you can then have a debate as to whether or not that's logical or that's, good from an economic vantage point. But why on earth would you raise taxes after you've just tanked? And the economy hasn't even, we're not even back to normal as a society. This is what I don't understand also. We haven't even gone back to normal. Life is not normal. It's kind of getting there. Not yet. Not I guess if you live in Florida, Eric, you could tell me if it's normal there. If you live in free, wonderful states that don't relish and gleefully impose draconian policies, great. But if you live in Democratic-run states, the governor almost certainly has, because science tanked the economy, and your life is not yet back to normal. So he's going to raise taxes, and it's actually not going to give people or business owners or corporations incentives. So this is in 2020. This is interesting. Biden's tax plan will hold back the economy. This was in 2020. So this is an interesting article. It would discourage savings, investment, business formation, and wouldn't do much to reduce income and wealth inequality. Look, this is something, because I used to be on the left. I can tell you, it's not about it's not about logic in terms of economic logic or rationale. It's about feeling morally superior and saying that the rich should pay their fair share, while believing that if they pay their fair share, you'll reduce economic inequality. That doesn't happen. You could raise taxes on the wealthiest even more than Biden wants. That would actually hurt the economy. See, Democrats don't the Democratic voters and Democratic politicians like Biden himself. Well, I should say Biden, for example, never owned a business. His son did, but that's a whole other story. So he doesn't he doesn't see things from the vantage point of somebody that's hiring 10, 12, 100, 200 people or 20,000 people. He doesn't see things from the vantage point of a business that has to remain profitable or a business that has shareholders. And a lot of Democratic pundits, like a great many progressive pundits also, but a great many Democrats, the ideology on the left is that you have to force an economic outcome. You can do so by forcing the economic outcome through taxes. So CMW, thank you so very much. So the mindset is there's wealth inequality, there's people out of work. So instead of focusing on getting people, and that's what Democrats do to communities that they claim to represent and protect, these communities have been mired in poverty. And you can look in the 1970s, run by Democrats, 1980s, run by Democrats, 1990s, run by Democrats, 2000s, run by Democrats, 2010 to now, run by Democrats. And still, the communities are still mired in poverty. And no emphasis on economic growth. Like Trump came in, he said, look, economic opportunity zones. And then there were pushback. Well, it's not helping. It's like, well, at least he's trying to generate wealth. The key to a lot of the problems, even issues between law enforcement and certain communities are bring wealth into the community. And you'll have less crime and you'll have less interactions and you'll bring wealth, generate wealth. But see, Democrats don't think that way. They say, well, we're going to tax the wealthy and that will help bring about economic justice. But they don't realize that the wealthy are smart enough to, if you force a $15 minimum wage on a company, they'll just fire employees. They don't care. And then you have AOC and Bernie, and I used to buy it on the left when I was on you have a living wage. And then the owners of the corporations say, well, yeah, we're just going to slash our workforce. Or we're we're not going to move to this city or that city, or we're going to leave for Texas. If I was employing, even 30 or 40 or 50 people, I'd go to Texas. Why would you want to start a business in New York or California when you could go to Texas or even Florida or, states where you don't have, the same type? And it's interesting too. There's one channel. If you look at the racial discrimination lawsuit that one channel is facing, look up if you look at where it's a Delaware company. Why do you think that a progressive liberal channel that loves tax increases and that is in a California based would have a Delaware company? Da na 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 for just not to pay taxes. So, it's the height of duplicity and hypocrisy. But here, I'll read this article. Most major polls show that Joe Biden... It would be clear to discourage savings investment. Tax increases would discourage savings investment and business formation, potentially causing lasting economic damage. And by the way, what happened to the debt? So Democrats were talking about Trump's tax decreases. Cutting in taxes would increase the debt. How does Biden's plan relate to the national debt? Because he's not paying off the debt. He's just using it for other. So Biden tax increase. So Biden's first major tax hike since 1993. Okay, Clinton was the benefactor of so many, like the end of the Cold War. There's so many things he benefited from. So many things. The dot-com revolution, the internet was just starting. He benefited from this is not the 90s. This is the opposite of the 90s in every way. I pretty much grew up in the 90s, and that was a great time. 80s and 90s. 80s was a great time. 90s was an awesome time. It was fun. There was no social media. There was no cancel culture nonsense. You could live your life, and words weren't weapons. You were, I think, tougher as individuals, happier. I think young people, I think, are always happy, or at least like have energy and hope for the future. But I look at like life for a young person. If you were young in the 90s or 80s, I heard even the 70s and 60s were great also, but it's just different. CMW, thank you. Deplorable Brian. They know they are creating a competitive disadvantage for our country, too, because they had Yellen come out and float some kind of treaty. Two brain cells, hello, thank you. Deplorable Brian, I don't understand how this benefits us on a global scale. I don't understand how it benefits us. And my thing is, forget about the ideological argument of cutting taxes versus increasing taxes. Oh, this is here. Biden's spending spree would grow national debt $2 trillion. But you're increasing the national debt after they're Deplorable Brian, everyone here, CMW. What they talked about was the debt. They had the audacity to talk about the debt. They had the audacity to talk about the national debt. At least what Trump was doing was cutting taxes to spur economic growth, and that's what happened. It did. The economy grew, and we had record low unemployment. That's a fact. Of course, the hysteria and paranoia around Trump and everything. It's like nothing, like they never, even record low unemployment wasn't, like they're happier now with like this dystopian world than they are with everyone working, making money, and prospering under Trump. Like they would, in a way, it's kind of interesting. They would rather suffer with Democrats than prosper with Trump, which tells you everything you need to know about the left. Deplorable Brian, thank you. CMW, thank you. The Big Hit Buddha, hello. 85 Bears, yes. I love the Raiders, but I love the 85 Bears. Yes. 85 Bears, I mean, my God. Dan Hampton, Walter Payton, Otis Wilson, Mike Singletary, Wilbur Marshall. Just that team. Jim McMahon. That team was just so amazing. Such an amazing team. Steve McMichael. I love Steve McMichael. He was one of my favorite players. I think that he was just one of the great Bears of all time. So let's read this. Biden's spending spree would grow national debt by $2 trillion by 2030. Joe Biden may not be Elizabeth Warren. His aggregate plans would add close to $2 trillion to the debt by 2030, but reduce debt 6.1% by 2050. How does that work? 2050? You don't know what other administrations are going to do 30 years from now. Don't you love this? Don't you love this? So you have to wait 20 years after 2030. But you know what? By 3025, 1,000 years from now, it would actually decrease the debt by a whopping total of 25%. So all you have to do is wait 1,000 years. So honestly, Democrats are on the right side of history, always. You just wait 1,000 years. See? The experts agree. This is so funny. This is pretty unbelievable. Oh, then you get inflation. Mike Pasqua. Hello, Mike. Thank you, Mike Pasqua. Thank you. Mike, thank you so much. So you're going to increase the debt by $2 trillion in 10 years. 9 years. But 30 years from now, it'll reduce the debt. Mike Pasqua, thank you. Mike, thank you. 30 years from now, the debt will be reduced by 6%. Yeah, it's good. 30 years from now, but 9 years from now, $2 trillion. What happened to, oh my God, he's adding to the debt. Trump, with his tax reduction, people paying less taxes. Unbelievable. Julian, yes. Refrigerator Perry. Loved that team was... You take that team and you put that team against... And I think Tom Brady's, the greatest of all time just because his rings. Of course, I thought Marino and Montana were better than him up until recently, but You can't argue with 7 rings. You can't. But if you put Brady, the best Patriots team, or even this Bucs team, against the 85 Bears defense, I'm not so sure that he wins. Or that I don't know. Plus, you have Walter Payton. That offense was a pretty good offense, too. So, Mike, thank you so very much, Mike. CMW, thank you again. Willie Gault, he was a great wide receiver. That Bears team had a pretty good offense too. So their tight end, Emory Moorhead was good, really good tight end. But then you have Walter Payton on the field, and Jim McMahon was a good QB, but Walter Payton could be the best football player of all time. So. But it is sad that sports, that's the thing. In a way, you can look, and ESPN is part of the public relations apparatus machine. And it's like, there used to be a time in American history, maybe 6 years ago, even 5 years ago, where you could relax and watch a football game or watch late night and not be inundated with, I just want to let you know what the Republicans did. Those Republicans are. And it's like, and then, we were taking a stand on this, and then it's like, oh my God. That's, if you want to bring politics into entertainment, then have debates. But you better believe Jimmy Kimmel would get, in a debate, annihilated by anyone who just had, any nuanced grasp of the topics he discusses every evening. You can't, let's put it this way. They're given a script, like Jimmy Kimmel and John Oliver. They're given a script every single day. They're not experts, or I should say, they're not really well-versed in the topics that they talk about. They're very confident because they're given a script. But if you had to flip the script in a debate, if you had to actually pit them or put somebody in front of them to debate them, what do you think would happen? I don't think it would be very good for them. Exactly, Carl. They need every single possible advantage. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so very, very much. It has been slow on this channel. It has been so slow because things are slow generally. And I am going to start doing 2 live streams a day. I'm going to start doing 2 live streams a day on probably May 1st. So my next live stream will probably be, it could be tomorrow night. I might do a live stream tomorrow night. So I might do another one tomorrow night and then take a couple days off. But, ladies and gentlemen, Eric, thank you so very much. Luke St. Martin, I hope all is well. Thank you as always. Everybody, CMW, everybody here, thank you so much. Thank you so very much, everyone. I will see you. I'll do an upload in about an hour or so. And tell your friends about this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Tell your friends about this channel and be here for hopefully I'll do the live stream tomorrow evening. Paul Bartlett. Hello, Paul. I hope all is well. JG. Oh my goodness, I'm leaving now and JG is here. Yes. JG. It is a pleasure and an honor to see you here, JG. I'm ending the live stream, but tomorrow evening, everybody, CMW, Eric, Paul, JG, everybody here. Tomorrow, David, thank you, Alice. Tomorrow at around 8 p.m. Pacific. 8 p.m. Pacific. 8 or 9 p.m. Pacific, I'm not sure, but probably 8 p.m. Pacific, I'll do the live stream. So be here for tomorrow. Everyone, thank you so very much. CMW, thank you again. Everyone, God